So, you talked about working in the college, and then, or the school, sorry, not the college. You got your master's degree sometime in there, and then kind of,
Yep.
it sounds like you were ramping up to finish your career and getting all your professional education to help you set up. Was that your go after, or was it just because you were interested in furthering your education at that point?
A little bit of both. I mean, when I originally joined, I always promised myself I was going to leave the service with no less than a master's degree, and that's what I focused on. So I worked on a master's, with an MBA with a focus in project management, and then immediately following that, I obtained my PMP. So I went from finishing my master's 1 year to making the PMP my focus the following year and obtaining it. Um,
Before you move on from PMP,
Professionally,
just for viewers' sake,
uh-huh.
so a PMP is a professional, or sorry, project management professional certification for and anything project management related. It's think about it like having it's like a bar exam type certification where you go through it and it's internationally recognized as a certification for folks that are implementing projects really heavily in like technology, construction, and anything where you might see that title of project manager. Sorry, I figured I'd throw that out there just so people are aware.
No, no, that's great context, and I forget sometimes that we, definitely gotta make sure it translates easily. But yeah, I mean, finishing my PMP, and you kind of know when you're getting to the end of your career, and I was just making sure that all my certification, all my education lined up, and was able to kind of marry well with the experience I've obtained in the military. I made selection to W5 while at the college, but you know, hanging around for that rank means 3 more years,
Mm,
uh, and it would have been another deployment for me. And where I was at in life was that I was ready for the next big thing. So I stepped out on faith to go ahead and retire and transition into civilian workforce, and it was a great decision for me
so
to become a civilian at this point.
So for you to actually pin on CW5, you had to re-enlist to get that rank. Was it kind of like a stick and carrot type thing, or was it?
Yeah, so you had the like you can turn down the rank when you're selected, in which case it counts as a non-select, and if you stick around, you get looked at again the following year. But two non-selects means that the Army is putting you out. So I just did a retirement packet after that, and just decided not to go ahead and pin on W5, but go ahead and retire
Nice.
in lieu of it.
And I think that gives us a great segue of how we met and kind of what what you do. Not trying to turn this about us, but just kind of your transition into your professional world and what you do and kind of obviously want to keep it somewhat high level in the conversation. But
Yeah.
so getting out of the service, what was it like finding a job? Was it easy? What kind of recommendations you have for those that are soldiers today or Marines, airmen, seamen that are getting out that are trying to figure out what the hell they're going to do next?
I was scared shitless. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, for you viewers out there that are looking at transitioning, it sounds like everything was lined up for me, right? So I had close to 30 years in. I had a long, prestigious career. I had my education lined up. I had my industry certs lined up, and I was still a nervous wreck on transition because I took the world I was coming from. I knew all the rules. I knew the rule book into something I didn't understand and know. And so it's nerve wracking for you. And what was even scarier for me is I was attending the mandatory transition assistance program classes. There was other individuals that were less researched, and that concerned me for them that they didn't have access to as many resources that are free to them
Right.
because they didn't do the same level of research. So even now, it's a passion of mine to mentor people who are transitioning, and there are certain sites that I'm a part of in order to share my experiences, and some of the resources that I use because it scared me other people didn't know about these resources. But for me, I used Hire Heroes in order to write my resume because I never had to really write a resume before. Um, I use mentor websites like American Corporate Partners and Veterati, in which I wanted to leverage people who have been in industry, to leverage their experience and kind of get their best take on things. And man, I put my resume out on different job sites, and the number one advice I'd give anybody transitioning is that nothing happens as quickly as you think it will happen. So putting my resume out there, in my mind, I'm thinking I'm going to get hit backs, 30 days, 45 days from the time I submitted. And some of those, it would be up to 6 months before I hear back on a specific position I applied for. And when you're transitioning and you're trying to get everything lined up for when you're on transition leave or done with transition leave into when you expect to start a career, you have to take that time lag into consideration. And it was very scary for me. I mean,
Yeah.
I was applying online. I wasn't getting satisfied with the number of hits I was getting back, or some of the responses back were, um, not for the roles I wanted, but ones I would just try to float and see what kind of responses I would get. And it got a little nerve wracking, but some of the things that changed the game for me was deciding to attend hiring events in person. And the first event that I attended was hosted by recruitmilitary.com in partnership with the Disabled American Veterans Association in Fort Walton Beach,
Hmm.
which was only a couple hours from Fort Rucker, where I was getting out of the military. And I was going to this one as a practice event for a big one that was going to happen in the Atlanta area.
Yeah.
And I actually walked away from this event with 3 job offers,
Nice.
which was crazy for me. And one of them being with the company that we're with now, CW. Um, I was offered a role as a program manager oversighting the Air Force cyber programs that CDW is a part of. And it felt like vindication for your whole military career into what industry is leading you out to be, because everybody has in their head, oh, I'm going to get out, I'm going to make 6 figures. And you absolutely can. But you have to have the right transition plan, you have to have the right certifications and education. So I would tell you, plan for your transition and understand your worth too, because that is a part of that I'm still trying to do, in understanding what my market value is
Hmm.
as an employer. Um, so those are things that you're going to continue to struggle with as other service members transition, but are the lessons that they need to start learning in order to kind of make an effective transition.
Yeah, that understand your worth is really interesting because I know I've seen that just constantly with veterans that are looking at roles and they just don't have any idea. I know whenever I was separating, I thought somewhere as an E4 pay I needed about, I think it was like 32,000 a year. I'm like, that's even with what I had in the service. And I got out and I got my first paycheck when I was working at Apple Computers. And I remember looking at that first paycheck and I just started crying because I was like, holy cow, I was
Mm-hmm.
way off because I wasn't thinking about all like the different pay that you have, like your your base house or
Yeah.
BAH, BAS, and things like that. Had no, just
Yep.
didn't even incorporate that, and they never really talked about that when I was going through our in the Air Force. They called it TAPS, the Transition Assistance Program, and no
Mm-hmm.
idea that that was a reality. So definitely to the viewers, make sure that you talk to someone that's a civilian to understand what your career field makes. Do your research on like Glassdoor websites to understand what those
Yeah.
roles pay. Um, there's been people I even made comments about how veterans have retirements so they don't need as much money and comments like that. It's complete bullshit. Make sure you know your worth before you accept a position because there is some people that might be predatory against you because they know that you're a veteran and you're naive to what the world will pay you. And seek counsel from someone that knows what they're talking about in it.
Yeah, I would say use a mentor website in order to kind of make sure that they help you kind of figure out your market value. I know for me, one of the jobs I was offered at that job fair was with a company that I'm not going to name, but it was for a project manager role that they had. And out the door, they were trying to offer me $90,000, and I think there was some calculation to your point, Mark, about oh, you're a veteran with a retirement, so we don't have to pay this individual that much or offer them benefits. My methodology for articulating my worth to them was essentially that when they gave me the $90,000 offer, I countered and told them, well, the Army right now, after taxes, pays me 92,500 annually. If you take into account that I now have to pay out of pocket for benefits, and you plus that up by around 25%, really our starting conversation for pay should be around 115 to 120 as starting pay. Where do I sit on your end of the pay scale there? And I was still within band, but I was on the high end of that band. But that was my technique for threading that conversation. One
Yeah.
that I would encourage any of the viewers to look at yourself, but also work with a mentor to make sure that you're able to kind of smoothly convey that and articulate your market value.
Yeah. And it might even be a good conversation for. I know it's kind of out there for some people, but if you're comfortable with it using the chat, like there's tons of veterans that follow this and can even talk to help you kind of through terminology and comments that you can make to help even increase that pay band, because I know in every position I've ever had, I've always countered, and I've never had someone say no. They've usually responded to that counter with something. Now, if you counter twice, that second time usually you'll get a firm no, because at a certain point it gets irritating to a hiring manager to have someone keep coming back and forth with it. But
Right.
definitely there's some tips that can be shared in this. Not that this channel is heavy career or anything like that, but I think it's helpful for veterans, and even if it's we can point you in a direction to go with some mentorship and someone to kind of help you out. And there's some great agencies out there. And just my only ask is if you're one of those people getting help from one of those agencies, once you're in a position where you can help mentor back down to people, it needs to be a give and take cycle. So make sure that you're getting involved in that and giving back to veterans as well once you've got where you need to be too.
Yeah,
Um,
that's absolutely a great point because I mean we all got where we are in our military careers because somebody mentored us, and it doesn't change the fact that you take off the uniform. You have to reach back and give back to one of our brothers and sisters in arms. Make sure that they're successful in their transition, and so that they can be thinking about how they reach behind them to make somebody successful as well.